Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
And here we go.
Live from the Hollywood foothills of North Carolina, welcome to episode 83 of the Confirmed Epic Podcast, the official podcast of the epicreview.com and proudly presented by the Geeks Worldwide Radio Network. I am one of your hosts, the real Brad Bell, and joining me on this fine Tuesday night is the one, the only, Jerry Reed, also known as
Barbecue 17. What's going on, everybody?
What's up, Jerry? It's good to be back on the Confirmed Epic Podcast with you again. This is awesome.
Feels like it's just been like 3 days.
I know, getting in a groove, getting in a routine, and it has just been 3 days because we recorded that Batman Forever episode on a Saturday. We got to do that in person in one of your collecting rooms. But with this is kind of trying to be our set schedule here, record Tuesday nights and probably release Thursday or Friday. We'll see how long editing takes with this new process. But thank you for clicking play. Thank you for downloading, whether that's on the Geeks Worldwide, SoundCloud, whether that's on the Epic Review Podcast Network feed. We appreciate it so much. Now, Jerry, what was our original plan for this podcast?
We were going to go watch the movie Winchester, and I was making my way to the theater yesterday when Brad called and said the theater was on fire.
Well, I thought it was on fire, but
it wasn't on fire.
It wasn't. It was a gas leak. So this theater is an AMC now, and it used to be Carmike 10. I mean, I've probably seen, Jerry, from the time I was in like 10th grade when this thing opened to the time that I moved away from Shelby. I'm sure I saw 500 movies in this theater.
Yeah.
And at least probably, an average of 60-something movies a year for many years. And it's a special place. It's in the old stomping grounds. Lot of good memories, a lot of epic memories there. Like seeing Spider-Man 3 and Adam pouring a whole cup of Coke on me in the middle of Live Free or Die Hard. Shout out to friend of the show, Adam Dixon. But, so I'm walking up, Jerry. I'm really looking forward to this, right? As we get older, it's harder for us to get to the theater and get these things set up. And I know it wasn't Infinity War or anything, but it was still a horror movie that you and I were going to go see together, and if it was bad, we could still crack on it together.
Yeah. We hadn't seen a movie together in a while.
It's been a while. Yeah, I can't even think the last one. Oh, was that it? Yeah, I think it was
Spider-Man Homecoming, last thing we saw together.
Or was it The Mummy?
Mummy was before Homecoming, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it was. So you're talking like around the 4th of July.
Yeah.
So I'm walking up to the theater. I look up. I'm like thinking, man, that's where the Carmike sign used to be. I'm like, I'm really going to enjoy this because as we get older, like I said, this is harder to do. And as soon as I'm walking up to the theater, this is no hyperbole here, fire truck comes just racing by. I'm like, now this theater's connected to a mall, an old mall, but still a mall. And I'm like, there must be some kind of problem in the mall, maybe a fire. Fire truck, that's your first reaction. But remember, they're first responders, right? So, nope, that's not what happened. I saw people flocking out of the theater. It was a gas leak. And we couldn't see Winchester, so I called Jerry. And I'm like, what are we going to do? And what was your suggestion, Jerry, for tonight's episode as our main topic?
We could spend the whole time talking about the Solo trailer.
That's absolutely right. And so that's going to be our featured discussion. So not a featured review this week. Our featured discussion will be of the first Solo trailer. So we got a 40-something second spot during the Super Bowl, then Good Morning America, then right after YouTube, we got the full teaser trailer. And there's a lot to unpack there, especially when you're talking about a Star Wars expert like Jerry and two people here who have a tremendous passion for that property. So that's what we'll be talking about tonight. But as always, we start the Epic Review podcast, the Confirmed Epic podcast, rather, with what we've been checking out. So, Jerry, I know it's only been 3 days since our last recording, so this segment may be kind of tough, but I know you're always checking stuff out. What have you been checking out, Jerry?
Well, I started after we recorded our podcast, I went and read the book Strange Weather by Joe Hill. Are you familiar with Joe?
Which is Stephen King's son,
he is
right?
Stephen King's son. He looks like Stephen King. He writes like Stephen King. And he writes horror fantasy, things like that. I have been a fan of his since Lock and Key. I actually,
I remember you talking about that on the early days.
When I first got Lock and Key, I did not know he was Stephen King's son. I actually didn't know until after I'd read, 20th Century Ghosts, which was his first book. It was kind of a collection of short stories, and I finally looked something up about him, and I'm like, my gosh, this guy looks like Stephen King. I mean, I already thought he wrote a little bit like him. But anyways, so Strange Weather is his most recent book, which as soon as my wife got it for me for Christmas, and as soon as I looked at it, it made me think of the Stephen King book, Different Seasons, which is where the Apt Pupil. Have you ever seen Apt Pupil, Brad?
Never seen it.
It's really good. The movie Apt Pupil has Ian McKellen in it and Brad Renfro. You would like it. This high school kid is in a history class. And
it's right up my alley.
And
for sure.
He finds out that he starts having suspicions that one of his neighbors is a Nazi. Was a Nazi who is, come to the U.S. and changed his name.
So this is post-World War II.
This is post-World War II. I mean, it takes place in, the late 80s, early 90s.
Oh, okay.
Maybe mid-90s. And so he starts kind of blackmailing him into telling him everything about the Holocaust. But that's in Different Seasons by Stephen King. That's where the Shawshank Redemption comes from. And
I know the movie. I've never read the book.
And
of course,
then
the movie's
The
a classic,
Body, which was turned into the movie Stand By Me.
Which is an all-time classic.
Yeah. There's one other. I think it's Heavy Breathing or something. It's called. I can't remember the fourth story. But anyway, so Joe Hill's book is Strange Weather, and it's pretty good. It's a little. It jumps around a little bit. There's 4 stories in it. They're not interconnected in any way, but they all have to do with weather in some way. One of them is about a Polaroid camera that erases people's memories. One of them.
That sounds like that would be the plot of a Goosebumps book.
That's what I thought too. Except the way this book tells it, it's very nostalgic. It ties together this with looking at someone who's growing older and then also has dementia, and so there's kind of some connections there. It's a very bittersweet story.
Is it heavy-handed?
That one is not. Now I was going to
Okay.
say there is one story that is fairly heavy-handed. It's also very good, but it's very dark. It's very heavy-handed. It's called Reloaded. And it's about a mass shooting, but it's about everything that leads up to a mass shooting, and then what happens afterwards as different people are trying to spin the story different ways. So it's pretty like I said, it's very clear where Joe Hill's politics lie, but it's very interesting. It's very fascinating.
Jerry, you may have said it, but what year did this book come out?
It just came out last year.
Okay, so this is a brand new book.
This is brand new. It
much.
came out in October of 2017. And I just got it for Christmas and just finally got a chance to read it. But I like his stuff. And again, I don't know how much Stephen King you've read, but he writes a lot like Stephen King, although I would be willing to say I think he's actually darker than Stephen King. I find that Stephen King's books have a lot of... I think Stephen King's books have a lot of optimism to them. Usually there is a very strong presence of good, in some way overcoming evil, and Joe Hill's books don't have that silver lining always. There's a couple of the stories here that just have a very, very disappointing ending, or an ending that just doesn't show any hope. So, but one of the things that's interesting for me with reading his books is Joe Hill's a lot closer to my age than Stephen King is to my age. Joe Hill, I think, is 45. So he's 10 years older than me, but 10 or 11 years older. But obviously his references, References to comic books and movies and music are much closer to references that I get, that I understand, that I grew up with, than Stephen King references are always. So
yeah, you got some Stephen King references, like some of the stuff in the It books pretty universal, right? Like the Wolfman or something,
right? But it's very clear that Stephen King can talk about stuff from the 50s and 60s,
exactly,
and where Joe Hill talks about things from the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. It's like, as Captain America said, I get that reference.
So, which one was your? So there's the Polaroid, there's the gun control message. What were the other two on?
The third one is about a guy who is skydiving after a friend of his passes away from cancer, and she wants everybody in their band to go skydiving in kind of her memory.
Would you ever go skydiving, Jerry?
Oh gosh, I think I would like to.
I don't think I could ever do it. I don't think I could do it.
Well, this guy is terrified to go skydiving. And he finally is about to chicken out, about to tell him he doesn't want to do it. When he's up in the plane, about to jump, he has to go tandem because it's his first time. And the plane starts to lose power. And the pilot tells everybody, they have to jump. Like, they have to bail out of the plane. And he does. They jump out and land on a cloud. Like, the cloud is spongy, but it's stable, and
which is not good for skydiving.
The other guy, the instructor takes the brunt of it, and the guy gets disconnected from the instructor, and the instructor gets swept off with the parachute, and this guy is stuck on a cloud. To contemplate what he's going to do, and it goes places from there, but it is very enjoyable. The last one is kind of a sort of like a post-apocalyptic, a little bit about this lady in, it's either Denver or Boulder, I don't remember, because she travels from one place to the other during the story. But one day it starts raining like these fragments of crystal that are almost needle shaped that just rip things apart. And
which one was your favorite of these four, Jerry?
The one with the guy skydiving is actually pretty good. Now, reading it, the most gripping one was the one about the shooting, but it has kind of a downer ending, which, it would have to, I guess. But the one about the guy skydiving is pretty interesting because the cloud he lands on is not just a cloud. It's actually some sort of living being. And
wow,
it's pretty
fun.
The
supernatural element in there.
It blends elements of horror and fantasy, and it's very introspective. And I really enjoyed it. It's not my favorite Joe Hill book, but it's a very good one.
Kristen likes Joe Hill too, your wife, right?
She has read Lock and Key. I'm not sure she's read any of his books. She finds his Twitter and stuff fascinating, but I don't know if she's ever read the books. And kind of one of the things I told her is, again, sometimes with him being darker than Stephen King, there's some pretty brutal stuff in the book, some pretty disturbing stuff at times. And, every now and then there's something where I'm like, okay, I got to put this down for a second and, focus on something else. So I don't know how much she would enjoy the experience of all of the stories.
Yeah, I don't want to get too heavy-handed here, but going back to that shooting stuff, which I know it sounded like you said, a political spin was trying to be put on the shooting. I'm sure sides were trying to capitalize, whatever. But you have these towns and cities kind of gripped by these tragedies, and for a week or so, the whole world, or at least the country's focusing on them.
Yeah.
And then when you think about what it's like when the news crews leave, like how gripping and chilling and all that must be, it's kind of disturbing.
Yeah.
So it's something we don't think about often enough. So I've been checking out something in the horror genre as well, which I know that was kind of mixed mash there with the Joe Hill stuff. The film I checked out, Jerry, I want to see if you're familiar with it. It was called Wish Upon. Have you heard of this one, Jerry?
Wish Upon.
It was released.
Other than seeing that you'd watched it on Facebook, no, I haven't heard of it.
Okay, so it came out this past summer. It was like late summer, July 2017. The premise of this movie is a young girl finds a Chinese wish box that grants her 7 wishes, but with each wish comes a consequence, meaning a loved one dies or somebody's hurt badly, and she doesn't figure this out idiotically until like 3 wishes in. And her first
sounds familiar.
Yeah, if you saw the preview, you would
I
recognize
think I did see
it.
the preview.
It was a movie that come and went like rather fast. Like it has Barb from Stranger Things in it as one of the girl's friends. Okay. Yeah, it takes place obviously in a high school. These kids are probably, I'd say, juniors in high school, and she just wishes for the most generic stuff, but cliche maybe, but realistic high school stuff. She wishes, like, mild spoilers for Wish Up on here if you plan on watching this movie, but she wishes for the head cheerleader to rot, and this girl gets a skin disease, and she starts looking like a zombie. She wishes she was rich, and then a family member of hers dies and leaves her everything, and she's all of a sudden a millionaire. She wishes for this guy to fall in love with her. You get the point, right?
So that's like the old joke about the guy who wishes for a penis that drags on the ground and his legs fall off.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this is
pretty
a girl
much what it's
wishing this. Yeah. So
it sounds like a Tales from the Crypt episode.
It does kind of, but you know what this film reminded me of? Is it progressed was Final Destination 1 and 2. Have you seen the Final Destination movies, Jerry?
I actually have not.
Really? You need to watch the first 2.
Okay.
They're really, really good. Now, I think there was 4 of them. 3 is just like...
There's probably like 7 of them, but...
I know that 4 of them got theatrical releases. The 4th one is terrible. The first 2 are freaking awesome. The second one's the best one. But anyway, the plot of that is people survive a tragedy they're not supposed to survive, so one by one, fate catches up with them in horrific ways. And that was kind of what this turned into. Not as much about the moral lesson that this girl learns from wishing for such materialistic things, which she does, but it was how each wish, the death that it led to, how it had to one-up one another. For example, her best friend, mild spoiler here, I should say big spoiler for this movie, her best friend is in an elevator. Okay, so they're at this hotel. They're playing like a Pokemon Go game. Like, that's what takes them to this hotel.
Shoot.
But instead of Pokemon, it's Ghost, like digital
nothing
Ghost.
Nothing good's going to come from that.
So she goes up on the top floor. She gets the Ghost. It was apparently a really hard one to get. And she's on an elevator, and it's like looking out into the lobby of this 5-star hotel or 4-star hotel, nice place. And it's glass, and you can see out, and people can see into the elevator. And the rope just cuts, and she falls like 50 stories. And her friends have to sit there and watch that. The elevator door pops open, and it's just a gruesome fate. So it's stuff like that. I mean, if you're into thrill kills, as I would call it, I think you'll like this movie. If you're looking for a very memorable horror movie, I would say skip it. I gave it an 8.5 when I reviewed it on the Epic Review, thepicreview.com. It was a fun movie to sit and watch on a Saturday while we Redboxed and chilled. So that's one thing. Yeah, that's one thing that I've been checking out. Did you check anything else besides the Joe Hill book?
So I've been watching. I watch a lot of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
All the time, though. That's like your life.
That's typically one of the things I will put on.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. This year, when we're talking about TV shows I watched the Twin Peaks revival. I watched Stranger Things. I've seen
that was last year, right?
Stranger Things 2?
You're right. This year?
From last year, yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
I watched the Twin Peaks revival, watched Stranger Things 2, watched Rebels Season 3, watched The Punisher, and no, I didn't watch The Punisher.
Did you finish it?
I haven't watched Punisher yet. Sorry, I hadn't started Punisher. Watched Daredevil Season 2, and I've watched the new Mystery Science Theater 3000 about 3 or 4 times. So I tend to watch them over, even the old ones, but we've been watching Manos, The Hands of Fate. Have you ever heard of Manos, The Hands of Fate?
No, enlighten me.
It is one of the worst movies of all time. It's from like 1966. Anyway, Mystery Science Theater 3000, they're making fun of it. But basically, I mean, the story behind this movie, though, is this guy who, I think he was like an insurance salesman from Texas. He was just doing a bet with some people from a local theater company and some friends. And they told him they didn't think that, he said, I think, like, he didn't think that making a movie would be that hard. And so this, like, guy this like, insurance salesman just starts making this horror movie about this family that goes out in a desert. And there's a guy who's supposed to be, like, a goat man, but they accidentally put his legs on, I mean, in the making of the movie, the things are supposed to make his legs goat-like. They put them on backwards, so it just looks like he has big shins. No, I'm sorry, big knees. Like, his knees and thighs are huge.
Did you watch SNL in the 90s?
I did.
Do you remember Jim Brewer playing the Goat Man?
I do. I do, Goat Boy.
And he would, like, interview, Goat Boy, and he would interview, like, 80s pop stars and stuff.
Yeah.
He'd be like, we got Wham on the show. And he would just be like, he would be drinking milk during the interviews, and classic 90s SNL. But go ahead.
No, sorry. But I mean, this guy's like a satire or something. But like when he talks like this, and it's just. But I mean, the camera they used for this movie could only record 20 seconds at a time. And so sometimes, I mean, there's like whole scenes of just driving, and then it goes on for 20 seconds. And I mean, it's very clear, like, such an amateur production. But there's this, it's the Mystery Science Theater 3000 version is really, really funny. And I've been watching it. Manos is a terrible movie, but you should check it out if you watch the MST3K version. I could not imagine sitting through the regular version. But you said SNL. I did check out something on SNL this weekend. The Natalie Portman rap part 2. Did you see this?
No, I didn't.
Do you remember the Natalie Portman rap from about 12 years ago?
No.
There's this rap. It was done by the Lonely Island, so Andy Samberg.
Yeah.
And anyways, it's an interview with Natalie Portman, and they're like, so what's it really like to be Natalie Portman? And she's like, oh, do you really want to know? And it turns into this loud, profane, vulgar gangster rap with Natalie Portman about how she does, like, cocaine at Harvard and how she, like, randomly stabs people. So anyways, they did a version of it where someone's interviewing her 10 years later. But there's a part where the guy goes, so Natalie, have you seen the new Star Wars movies? And she goes, no, I haven't. And he goes, oh, well, they're much better than... And she goes, much better than what? And so she, like, pulls out a gun, and she's dressed like Queen Amidala in the, the very traditional red outfit that she wears in Phantom Menace. And she's, like, running up to Star Wars fanboys, like, rapping with a gun to their head, saying, like, say something nice about the prequels, say something nice about Jar Jar. And it's really funny.
I'll have to check that out on YouTube, which is usually how I consume SNL.
You need to watch it. It's 2 minutes.
Yeah, I checked out one more thing as well, taking it back to the world of comics that we spent a lot of time on last week.
We did talk about comics quite a bit.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun. I've been catching up on the main DC character solo books, and I'm on Superman right now. I was reading Superman 31. Now, it's a creative change. Tomasi and Gleason have left the book. I don't know if they're coming back. I don't know if they just took a hiatus. Of course, Bendis is going to take over this book in the middle of the summer. But the guy writing it now is James Bonney. The artist is Tyler Kirkman. I'm not too familiar with him. But it's actually a pretty good little story. The name of the story is Breaking Point, and it revolves around Lois Lane trying to get an interview with Deathstroke. And he is willing to do this piece if she can find Deathstroke. And he's like, if you're such a good investigative journalist, I'll give you the interview if you can find me.
Nice.
And of course, it revolves around her, globe-trotting, looking for Deathstroke. and Superman watching her back. And there's some good stuff in there. It's like, hey, I'm glad you have my back, Clark, but, you know, I can do this. Let me do it on my own. Lois Lane. Really powerful moments for Lois Lane. And she writes the story, and Perry publishes it, and typical stuff. But, like, the last panel, which I know nothing too big is going to come of this, the last panel is Deathstroke confronting her and basically shooting a gun, and it's like, to be continued. I just thought this was, at least you got to give DC credit and these writers credit, and the artists here, Kirkman. They're trying to do something a little different with Superman.
Yeah.
And it's cool when you see other characters who don't usually interact in a solo book.
That is pretty cool.
So, yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I look forward to catching up more on Superman.
Are you reading the Deathstroke single series? I
read like the first 8 or 9 episodes. Superman was in one of those or 2 of those as well.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I really like it. I think, like I said, I've read the first. What, 2 trades are out at this point?
Yeah, I probably almost read 2 trades worth.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I didn't hate it, but I couldn't get into it really either.
I think it's definitely one that reads better as a trade, I'm sure, because there's
a lot going on in that book.
There is so much jumping back and forth between multiple time periods.
Yeah.
But I really like it. I mean, it's one of those books that's not as connected to the other books that DC's doing right now. It's just kind of its own thing, but it's so good. I really like Deathstroke. Probably one of my 5 favorite Rebirth books.
Okay, so check out Deathstroke. Like Jerry said, you can get those first 2 trades on Amazon now. And Superman's been awesome. Action's been awesome since Rebirth started. And with Bendis coming on, it's only going to get better, I imagine. Let's go ahead and move forward to the Epic News segment here. Jerry, we got a good mix of movie, comic, and toy news here, so we'll mix around. I'm going to start with the biggest news of the day, and I did not plan on talking about this tonight because this broke this afternoon. And I was like, are we going to have that much to talk about with Epic News? Because, again, we podcasted Saturday, but a incredibly epic story broke from Disney, from Lucasfilm, that Weiss and Benioff, who, for those of you that don't know, are the showrunners behind Game of Thrones. Of course, George R.R. Martin crafted the story, but they are the ones adapting it, putting together the set pieces and stuff. Weiss and Benioff have been given, Jerry, a Star Wars trilogy of their own. So this is separate from the Skywalker saga, separate from the Rian Johnson trilogy that he's been given. Another Star Wars trilogy, which would make this the 3rd trilogy since Disney bought them. Because you had the sequel trilogy, the Rian Johnson trilogy, and now you're going to have a Weiss and Benioff trilogy.
Yeah.
Jerry, are we at overkill here? Because I'm starting to get really worried.
Well, we got another one. Earlier today, it was announced that I think Bob Iger from Disney had told investors that they're developing not just one, but actually a few Star Wars series for Disney's streaming service as well.
Okay, so I did not catch that.
So we'll have multiple Star Wars shows.
Live action, I'm presuming.
I'm assuming
and probably
live action.
Animated, too.
I'm sure they'll want to get a new animated in there as well, since Rebels is getting ready to wrap up. So we're talking about the main saga. We've got the Star Wars stories going on. We've got the Johnson trilogy. We'll see if that pans out or not. And we've got this new trilogy from the Game of Thrones showrunners. And what was your question, Brad?
So you stated all the stuff we got there, and I didn't even hear the news from Iger that I knew there was going to be the live action Star Wars show, but I didn't know it was going to be multiple on the streaming platforms.
Multiple.
Are we to the point here to where it's overkill, especially with the movies? There is such thing as too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a real thing when you talk about supply and demand and how the market works. You don't want to oversaturate the market. And I was really comfortable with the saga, the Skywalker saga continuing, and getting these in-between movies like Solo, a Star Wars story, Rogue One, and whatnot. But do we really need 3 trilogies? Jerry? That's a lot.
Yeah. As someone who, again, I read every Star Wars thing that comes out, one of the books, comics, whatever it is. I mean, try to watch every movie, every TV show. That is a lot coming out at this point, and
you consume every bit of content. Like I read Dr. Aphra, I read Vader, I read Star Wars. I'll read a novel, like I read Lords of the Sith, Phasma.
Yeah.
So I'll read a novel here and there, not every novel. Of course, I see the movies multiple times, and I got the movie pre-ordered on 4K Blu-ray.
Yeah.
But Jerry, for the listeners that don't know, and a lot of you do know, he consumes every bit of content since the new canon started.
Yeah. And that's a lot of stuff coming out, and I really do find myself here's a Two-Face reference for going back. I'm of two minds on this subject. On one, I do think that what we are going to have to do with Star Wars is to move in a different direction, because every story can't be about Han, Luke, and Leia in some way.
Or the Skywalker
line, because that starts to make things feel very small. If every story is about those characters. But I think we have to be careful moving forward with so many movies that Star Wars kind of loses the prestige that it has. I mean, some people obviously think that it already has, with the fact that we've had 3 movies, coming up on 4 movies within 4 years. 3 years.
I don't feel that way, but I'm starting to get that inkling that I could appreciate this more if I had a little bit more time to digest it and reflect on it. Like, I think, especially with the Skywalker saga, they should do 3 years in between.
Yeah. Even 2 years would be enough if there wasn't something all the time. I mean, 1 year minimum. But I think the question is Disney trying to turn Star Wars into the next Marvel? And I think it's clear that that's exactly what they're trying to do.
And I just think this is not a good path for this franchise, because I've always said this about Star Wars, and it's probably my favorite property of all time aside from Batman. And that is, it's a very rich property.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I get really consumed into Star Wars, obviously there's stuff I really, keep up with, but I'll get on Star Wars kicks, in particular around Christmas.
Yeah.
And I know you've said you do too as well sometimes.
Always around Christmas. All the
and
time,
I never get
around Christmas especially.
Yeah, especially with the movies have been at Christmas, So, you can burnout's not the right word, because I don't ever get burnt out on Star Wars, but I find myself wanting to explore other avenues of entertainment within the geek sphere, if you will, because it's like this. Star Wars is like a rich chocolate mousse. And I love chocolate, it's like my favorite dessert in the whole world is the chocolate mousse at Olive Garden. And when I eat it, probably once every 6 months, it is really special,
Yeah.
But if I eat the chocolate mousse once a month, it's going to lose its luster, and I'm going to get really fat, first of all. But Star Wars fans, we're so spoiled right now. So I hate to sound like that type of geek, but at the same time, the property needs time to breathe.
Well, so
just breathe.
Here's my thought, and I think the way that I'm most coming down on this right now is that if there are too many movies, that's not a good thing. The movies are always going to be kind of the main event.
Top of the tier.
Yeah.
They should be sacred territory.
And if you start making them feel less special, more mundane, and don't give people the chance to kind of like mine them, I always feel like a lot of Star Wars, the best comics, the best books, sort of mine things from the movies. They're taking something. from ideas in the movies or characters or locations the movies have presented, and then they sort of go from there. And I think if you just have too many movies coming out eventually, people are going to get lost. Now, if Disney said, after episode 9, we're going to leave that area alone and untouched and let, writers and comics and video games and stuff develop that for, a number of years, like we've seen happen with, the prequels or the original trilogy, and we're going to focus on the, Old Republic or something. But I think thinking about these things being a yearly event, or like with Marvel where we sometimes get 2, 3, maybe 4 movies a year, I don't know. I just don't know that Star Wars is a property that will work for.
Because with Marvel, you have so many different characters, and I know you do in Star Wars as well, but they all feel not just distinctly different in a character sense, but in the settings they're involved in. Thor's in Asgard, Black Panther's in Wakanda, Spider-Man's in Queens. Whereas I know this galaxy's infinite, but it feels like it can be a bit samey. And a lot of that is the problem of not the Star Wars galaxy, because you read legends and stuff, it's infinite and it's vast. But like you said, they made this vast galaxy feel small.
Yeah.
So I'm really, with the Rian Johnson trilogy, I was actually kind of excited because it was going to be something different, obviously, because the last Star Wars movie he did was different, for better or for worse. We could talk about that another day. But it was going to leave the Skywalkers alone. It was going to focus on a new group of characters. To me, that was exciting. But, okay, now we're doing that again. Like, maybe this is going to be some type of Old Republic trilogy. And that's what I would hope for. Yeah. Like a distinctly different time period. So, but we're going to talk more about Star Wars in our main topic.
A lot to say about Star Wars. I'm trying to bide my thoughts until we get there.
Yeah. So, let's move into some Marvel comic book news. Speaking of Marvel, not a big news here, but I wanted to mention it. Marvel has confirmed that Iron Man is going to have his Bleeding Edge armor in Infinity War. So we've seen him have the Extremis armor in some of the movies, where basically the armor comes to him, but the Bleeding Edge armor comes out of his skin. So the suit has become one with his body, with the Bleeding Edge armor. And that was something that was like a holy shit moment about 7 years or so ago when it happened in Iron Man comics for the first time. And I think when you see that, and no reason to think that Marvel won't do it right, I think that could be a pretty cool moment.
I'm pretty sure I reviewed a Bleeding Edge Iron Man back in 2013, one of the action figures. And it was still a fairly new concept. So
was that, I think, see if you remember, I think when he had the Bleeding Edge, like he had it in the red, but then it really became a thing when he had that black suit.
Yeah,
for a while.
The one I reviewed was from the Iron Man 3 tie-in series of Marvel Legends.
Yeah,
and so it was a comic-based figure, but it's in the red and gold.
Okay, all right, that's the first one where he had the Bleeding Edge. But I just think that would be cool. I mean, there's only so many ways you can freshen up Iron Man's armor, because with Iron Man 3 we saw so much of it. Yeah. And then again, Age of Ultron with the Hulkbuster. So this is, who knows how much Iron Man we're going to get in the near future. So why not just empty out the cabinet here, or the armor hall. So that's cool. Let's see. The Cloverfield news. Now, Jerry, I know you haven't seen Cloverfield 2.
I haven't seen
Cloverfield Lane.
14 Cloverfield Lane, is that what you said?
Yeah, I haven't watched one with John Goodman. Yeah, so you haven't seen that one, but you've seen the original Cloverfield, right?
I have seen the original.
There was a big... First of all, the Super Bowl was crazy for movies and entertainment. The biggest news of the night came when we got the Cloverfield 3, the Cloverfield Paradox, as it's called, teaser trailer. That was one. Then we got another trailer, and it said, this is hitting Netflix right after the Super Bowl. And that was kind of a holy crap moment,
crazy.
Because... Yeah, I mean, this is a game changer, perhaps. Now, with help if the movie's good, apparently it's not that good, but, I mean, we'll be the judge of that down the line. However, this was supposed to be a big release this April, It was my number one most anticipated movie of the spring. And to know it's on Netflix now, I hadn't watched it because I hadn't had the time. Pretty shocking. And it really ties into the first Cloverfield. It's about the origin of the monster that attacks. So that should be cool. What are your thoughts on this, Jerry? Is this something you want to check out? Was it a surprise when you heard that this was advertised, then it hit?
Yeah, I was pretty surprised when, not that I've been keeping track of it. I mean, I liked the first Cloverfield okay. It was a decent kind of found footage monster movie. But, just hearing the fact that we had a movie that was kind of teased and then suddenly it was streaming right into your home, it's a pretty big secret to keep. That's pretty wild when something like that happens, and to think what that could mean for, future movies and big properties, and that's a game changer right there.
I think for something like Cloverfield, it works. If it was a bigger property, like a more known property, I think you would want to hype it. You wouldn't just want to drop it, because I think that would give you the best chance for success.
Yeah. But
I think they knew what they had was not all that great. Go ahead.
Well,
Jerry.
I was going to say, part of it could be that it was a great way to generate hype for a movie that they weren't 100% sure of. But also, lots of people already take the day of the Super Bowl off anyway. So how many people decided to stay up and watch Netflix, or decided to get a Netflix subscription real quick to watch the movie? So
I bet they got so many subscriptions that night or that next morning.
It worked for them.
So I think we're going to try to review that later on down the line once we get time to watch it, because we got some other stuff we want to talk about on the podcast between now and then as main topics. All right, Jerry, let's get into some collecting stuff. Let's start with the big collecting news. Mezco, they revealed their 112 collective Black Panther movie version.
They did.
This was teased. You mentioned it on the last podcast. So when you finally got to see this thing online, what were your thoughts?
It's very cool looking. I mean, it looks exactly like what I would have expected. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. That's just what it is. When Mezco does movie versions of characters, they stay very close to being. It's not uncommon for people to call these little hot toys, and so
yeah.
I mean, it's very much like what you expect when you see a hot toy of a movie property. It looks great. It looks fantastic. There's not a lot of surprise there,
No, whereas when you have the comic book versions, what they can do with them as far as what era they choose to pull from and what accessories they choose to give. And so I think that's what makes Mezco special.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, is that Mezco has talked about a little bit of their design decisions. That, when they decide to do, okay, we're going to do our own version of the Punisher or the Flash, like they'll sometimes talk about how they decided to construct the figure, and what materials would a character really have used, and what would make sense versus what would somebody not have chosen as part of an outfit. So there's something exciting to see how they've interpreted a character. This is really just a translation of a character that we've already seen, but it looks good. Now I'm pretty picky on my Marvel figures in terms of what I pick up, so.
Yeah, I imagine you'd have to really, really be blown away by this film to pick it up.
Well, I haven't picked up any of the live-action Marvel figures. Again, I have 2 of the Punishers. I have Captain America.
Well, none of them have hit. None of them are out yet. They're up for pre-order. Like, you got your Spider-Man Homecoming, you got your Gladiator Hulk, yeah. Thor Ragnarok, and then you got this Black Panther, and then you have the Spider-Man with the the homemade outfit coming up. Yeah. But none of these Marvel movie ones.
I'm even holding back on the DC live-action figures.
Except Batman.
And I got Harley Quinn, because Batman-related villain. But, I didn't pick up Superman. I haven't pre-ordered the Justice League Aquaman or the Wonder Woman. Haven't pre-ordered those either.
But you pre-ordered the Batman tactical suit?
Oh, absolutely. And I've got Nightmare Batman coming.
Yeah, going back to the choices real quick that Mezco makes, like one of those things that caught my eye when I saw your collection. Well, I've seen it, when you were just starting, but the collection that you have now, like the choice to put that little Candor.
Yeah.
With Superman. I mean, just really, really cool when you see it in person with the figure.
Yeah, they come up with some neat things. Now, there was a little bit of criticism from people that Black Panther feels a little bit light on accessories. I mean, other than the hands, he only has a spear and the shield.
Yeah, which I'm guessing that's the accessories he uses in the movie, so that's what you get.
Yeah, I mean, there really may not be anything else. So, but some of the figures they do will have lots of extras, lots of little, doodads or gadgets, and some of them are pretty bare bones. So it's always interesting to see how what they choose and try to figure out why they chose to include certain accessories with certain characters.
Staying with Hasbro and Black Panther, they've teased a adult collectible helmet. Now, this is something they've been doing, and I believe Hasbro's done this with Star Wars and the Black Series, too, as well.
They have.
So we've gotten like a Star-Lord mask, although I know you have your homemade one.
Yeah, I kind of want the Star-Lord mask, though, so I'm sort of keeping an eye on it.
We've gotten Thor's hammer and things of that nature, so we've gotten some prop stuff. From what you hear, I know you're not a big prop guy. Some people, that's what they collect. Mm-hmm. Is the quality of these pretty good from what you hear, or is it hit or miss?
I think overall, from what I have heard, that the quality is pretty good. I've heard people tend to be pretty happy with the quality and how things look. Where I think people tend to be less happy is some of the items have had like light and sound effects, and I've heard mixed things about the light and sound effects, that they come off as rather toyish. But overall, these typically retail for about $100.
Yeah.
And they're way better than anything you would find at a
Halloween Express.
Yeah, Halloween Express or a Halloween store or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. They seem like cool stuff if that's what you're into collecting. One little tidbit of collecting stuff. I actually went to Starbucks. Our Target here has a Starbucks in it. So I was like, all right, I was picking Abby up some coffee. She passed her gestational diabetes test, and that's what she wanted was a Starbucks coffee. So, yeah, that was epic news for us. And I said, I'm going to check out the toy section real quick. And when I did, Jerry, one of the things that surprised me is a re-release of the flip head Power Ranger figures.
Oh, yeah, they come in a box.
Yeah, it comes with, like, in the box it did, but there's a box over that. Yeah. It's big. I don't know if I would say it's display friendly. It may be awkward to display.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're supposed to take, if the ideal would be to take the original package out of the new package and display just
no idea.
The original package looking, or...
Yeah, and they were $20. I mean, and it was like a replica of it. Like, it had the tattoo in there and everything. These things came with a little tattoo of whatever, like the Tyrannosaurus for Red Ranger and whatnot. I had the Red Ranger and Green Ranger flip head. That wasn't what I really liked. I collected the triangle box figures more. I wonder if they'll re-release those.
It wouldn't surprise me, but man, they really made it look pretty accurate. It'll be interesting to see if people try to flood eBay with those, taking them out of the box and pass them as the originals.
Yeah, there's got to be some tell on there somewhere, but people won't pay attention.
Yeah, somebody won't know. But Power Rangers has really done. I should say Bandai has really done a good job of putting a lot of Power Rangers sort of that, the legacy themed or the retro themed merchandise out lately. Last couple years they've really.
I wanted that freaking Red Ranger sword so bad.
Oh yeah, that was cool. What did I found some dragon daggers. So
I know. Did you flip those?
I did.
Okay, all right. Which Jerry doesn't flip many things off, and he offered one to me at cost, and he got them rather cheap.
Yeah,
so
found some Dragon Daggers at like a thrift store kind of thing.
I had my original one sitting back here on our dresser in our bedroom, so that wasn't going in the storage, Jerry.
Okay.
So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into.
You have the Dragon Dagger where?
It's sitting on my dresser right here.
That's awesome.
Hold on, I'll go grab it real quick. Hold on. Here we go.
Go summon a Dragon Zord for us, Brad. Oh, you got Dragon Zord too. That's cool. So did you keep the box for yours? Is that what you did, I guess?
This is the original Dragon Dagger, yeah.
Yeah.
I never took it out of the box.
Wait, as a kid?
I got it. Remember, this is the one I wrapped up at Christmas and passed off.
Oh, that's right. No, yeah. I remember that now. Sorry, I thought that was like your original one.
For those of you that don't know the story, real quick, my last Christmas living at home, this was a gift I always wanted, and my parents could never find it. They did one time, and they found two, and they were like, at KB Toys, and stuff was always overpriced at KB, and they were like $45 a piece or something. So I asked for it every Christmas, and it was just really upsetting that I didn't get it. And my parents knew that it was upsetting, and I can't complain because I was extremely blessed and got all the things I wanted as a kid. I was spoiled.
Except the Dragon Dagger.
Yeah, so I wrapped that thing up and passed it off as a Santa gift. So that's a story in the back catalog somewhere of the Epic review. Also, the original. That is my original there.
Does he have the tail tip? Does he got the tail tip?
Nope.
Those always go missing on you.
I know, because they're played with.
Yeah.
You know? These are the toys that made us, right?
The toys that made us. You watched that yet?
No, I haven't. I want to
start. It's good. It's very good.
Speaking of very good, let's go ahead and get into our featured discussion of the evening, which is the Solo: A Star Wars Story teaser trailer. All right, Jerry, we waited for this trailer for a long time. We waited for footage a long time for this trailer. Anything, a release of promotional images, which we finally got, right? But it took a while. That leaked out. This has been a weird movie for Star Wars fans to anticipate. One, it comes right, not almost 6 months, right after, if that, from the release of the big Episode 8 that we just got. And so this has kind of been on the back burner, I think, for a lot of Star Wars fans, on Star Wars fans' minds. But as we saw Episode 8 and we start to focus on, well, where's the Solo stuff? So we finally get it. Starts with the Superbowl. Get the main trailer that next day on Good Morning America, then on YouTube right then. And reactions were interesting around the internet. So before we get into how people reacted, what was your initial reaction to this trailer?
I really liked it. The first teaser, I was intrigued. I really liked this trailer. I have to admit, this trailer excited me quite a bit more than I anticipated that it would.
I was kind of the opposite when I first saw it. I'm talking about the Superbowl ad here, which was basically a shorter version of the main trailer. When I first saw it, I was really, really lukewarm, would be putting it positive. And there's stuff I liked about it, and we're going to get into it. But it was just the Alden Ehrenreich's take on Han Solo, which, again, it's a 1:35 trailer, so you're not going to dive too deep into that.
And I think he has maybe 2 or 3 lines in the trailer, you know.
Yeah, but I don't know. They just didn't sound good to me. They sound like more of a Han Solo imitation than a Han Solo portrayal. And maybe Harrison Ford's role and his portrayal is so iconic that it doesn't matter who they get as director, writer, or actor that it's always going to seem like an imitation. Maybe that is just a inherent problem with choosing to do this movie.
I think that's going to be one of the tough things. That's definitely one of the things that made me very hesitant to want to see any kind of movie like this, about one of the main characters. But
yeah,
recently I've been thinking back, because I see lots of people criticizing Alden Ehrenreich, which I'm not sure we've seen enough to really criticize, to say he's doing a good job or he's doing a terrible job yet. I mean...
Well, it's the rumors that he could barely pull off the lines, and a lot of that had to do... He's somewhere in Europe. I don't know where he's from. That his accent was very thick, and he had to work with a voice coach and a dialect coach to just be able to do a passable Han Solo, which I don't know how I got the role, if that's true, and maybe none of this is true.
When you said rumors, the Star Wars movies over the past, again, in the Disney era, have been just... Rumors have just flown out of these movies like crazy. It feels like a lot of these movies have had very troubled histories getting them to the screen. I mean, Solo had... Yeah. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, who were involved with this movie. I think people were very interested, and then, they were let go, or they left, or, there's different takes on what happened.
Seems they were let go.
Yeah, creative
by Kathleen
differences.
Kennedy.
With Ron Howard taking over, but we had this movie fairly well into production, and they changed directors. So... There's been a lot of rumors and things floating around. Again, let's think about it. This is a major blockbuster. How many people, other than devoted Star Wars fans, even realized that there was another Star Wars movie coming out 4 months from now?
That's a very good question. I would say that your average populace, not many.
That's crazy to think about. That Star Wars trailers, we've seen them usually, a year in advance?
Sometimes beyond that when you talk about the return with Episode 7.
Yeah, sometimes more than a year in advance. They've hyped it up. I just want to put this in a little perspective. At this point, for The Last Jedi, for Rogue One, for The Force Awakens, this is let's see. So we'll say early February. So we're less than 4 months now.
Yeah.
At this point, product lines for those movies were already out in stores. Merchandise was already out in stores.
Well, you'd had Force Friday by this point.
You would have had, Force Friday by this point. There would have been books and tie-ins and things already out. And I think most people didn't even realize this movie was coming out. So...
It makes me wonder, does Disney know they have a giant piece of crap, kind of what Netflix, or Paramount, knew with Cloverfield, and why they didn't give it that big release?
It's a tough thing. Is it that they're trying to not cannibalize, the box office of The Last Jedi? Or are they trying, give this movie its own distinctive... media and publicity? It is a very strange turn of events to do this. I mean, think about with other movies that are big blockbusters like this, how far in advance we get trailers and teasers and stuff like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, where there's smoke, there's fire, and I know this has been quoted in a million articles relating to Solo and the trailer specifically. I have a bad feeling about this.
But I will say,
I don't know what it is, Jerry.
After watching this trailer, I really like about everything in it.
You liked Ehrenreich.
I thought for the 2 or 3 lines that we saw him in, I thought his delivery was pretty good. I liked the lines that they gave him. I thought he was showing a little bit of nuance there. There was a little bit of Han Solo-ishness. I mean, again, this is younger Han Solo. Go back and imagine if somebody showed you Ewan McGregor in Episode 1 and said, oh, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, if you were really trying to compare him to Alec Guinness, that's a pretty tough act to follow. It took him about 2 or 3 movies before you're like, oh my gosh, I see the connection. So.
Oh yeah, by the time you get to Revenge of the Sith, it feels like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
It does. So, I mean, I'm going to give the guy the benefit. I don't think we've seen enough one way or the other to, to applaud or really criticize yet.
I agree. I mean, he needs to be given the benefit of the doubt, which is like, what's your judge on how the internet is reacting, and how do you feel about that?
I am seeing a mixture, which I think that's pretty much the way it is with Star Wars. With Star Wars stuff, half the people always love it, half the people always hate it. I mean, I'd say that's the way it is for properties, but I really feel Star Wars is, it really goes there. I have seen a lot of people that really, I think everybody seems to love Donald Glover. I think everybody loves Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian. Even though we haven't seen hardly anything from him, I think just the idea of that is winning people over. I think... Yeah, he feels like Lando, man. More than Aaron Reich, at least from this trailer, feels like Han. So, what I have seen a lot of people mention is in the one of the scenes I really like looks like some kind of an alien dance club or something, which already to me was more interesting than Canto Bight. That was one of the parts of Last Jedi. That's not hard. One of the parts of Last Jedi I really just didn't care for.
You and everybody else on the
But
internet.
if you look in the background, like there's Twi'leks there. There's alien races that we recognize, and so that was really
in the
cool.
Han Solo trailer, not on Canto Bight.
What is it?
In the Han Solo trailer.
In the Solo
right?
trailer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things here that make me feel that like with Rogue One, that we're getting a different side of the original trilogy. And I know this takes place before the original trilogy, sort of in that time between the prequels and the original trilogy, but there's a lot of stuff here that looks very classic but still very interesting. And again, I mean, maybe it's kind of being hypocritical to what we said earlier, but it does get me excited when we see like new types of Imperial troops, and that Imperial train that kind of looks like the one from I think it was one of the Rogue Squadron video games. Whoever those alien guys are that are charging at Han Solo. So there's some exciting stuff going on in this trailer. I'm kind of liking it.
A lot of people think that the female that you see, not Emilia Clarke, but I think it may be Angela Bassett who is playing it. I could be incorrect.
Could be.
African-American female, could be Han's wife from the comics. The comics revealed that Han was married to Sana Starros.
Sana Starros.
Yeah, Sana Starros. So... and that was a big reveal for those comic books. I remember that cliffhanger ending, and I think it was he and Leia that encountered her the first time. So that was a memorable moment from those comics.
So they
Probably
really
one
weren't
of
ever
the
married.
most.
It was something they did as part of a scam.
Yeah.
In order for a robbery, but she did kind of jokingly call. Well, she would call Han her husband to sort of get under his skin, but she takes on a pretty significant role, and so it would be,
and still is.
Yeah, it'd be very cool to see her in the movie, although I kind of feel that the age for this character may not be quite...
This character looks older in this film.
This character looks older in the film, whereas, she's clearly about Han's age, if, during in the comics between the Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. So that doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. But it was something fun to speculate about.
It definitely was. I mean, that was the first thing that came to my head is, my gosh, this looks like Sana Starros. So.
Yeah. I like the aesthetic that the trailer gives. It feels classic and modern at the same time. I know I said that about Batman Forever.
Yeah.
As well last week, so it may sound a little bit repetitive, but it does have a little bit of that original trilogy vibe to it, but at the same time, it's not that, and you can tell it's not going to be that. But the scene where Han and Emilia Clarke, I guess is it Kira, the character that she's playing is Kira.
It's got a QI with an apostrophe in it, so Kira.
Yeah, Kara, and it is.
My daughter watched this trailer and she said, "Who's that lady? She's beautiful." So my daughter was very impressed by it, and then when Chewbacca showed up, those were the big hits for her.
Yeah, those were the big hits for me as well, Jerry. So, obviously she's a good actress. She's great in that role as Daenerys Targaryen. Okay, incredible, especially in these past couple seasons. But remember her in the last Terminator movie, Genesis, Jerry? I mean, she was okay. I mean, nothing too special about her performance.
I thought with that movie probably there just was not much to work with. I mean,
that's true.
I kind of liked the last. I mean, I didn't think it was a great Terminator movie, but it was, it was better than some of the previous ones. But I just don't think she had a whole lot to work with in that film.
It looks like it's going to be like Smokey and the Bandit with Star Wars. I mean, that's what it looks like, and if that's what it is, that'll be fun. I mean, the stuff with her and Han on the speeders and just. It looks like a really fun movie. I don't know if we're going to leave this movie with a changed perspective on the character, because we're going to get things that have always been a part of his origin, right? We're going to get the Kessel Run. Obviously, we're going to get the Golden Dice, because if you look close, you see those in the trailer, right? And they played a significant role in Episode 8 as well.
We see hints at the background, the Imperial background, which has kind of always been one of those things that's popped up, that Han was in some way, involved with the Empire as a cadet or an officer. It kind of...
He was in the Imperial Navy.
Yeah. So... Which
is matching his Legends origins. It looks like this movie probably won't match the Legends origins completely, where he saved a group of Wookiee children that were destined for slavery. And he freed them, and that's why Chewbacca owed him the life debt, and he fled from the Imperial Navy. That's probably not going to happen, but I can see something in that vein happening. So I'm excited about that they're going to pull from significant moments of Legends.
They've done that a lot. I mean, the Disney films and the Disney books and Rebels especially have really mined elements of the Legends. I mean, sometimes even characters, but again, taking some of the best stuff and working it back in.
I know Pablo Hidalgo did an interview where it's like we've seen subtle, interweaving of the Legend stuff, but as time progresses in the next decade with Disney's Lucasfilm, you're going to see a lot more directly things interwoven, like characters such as I think he even mentioned maybe we do get to see like Darth Bane, which is one of my all-time favorite Legends characters. We got Woody Harrelson here too. I don't know what type of role. It looks like he's putting the group together.
Yeah, it looks like
that
Han's
are going to be
maybe like a mentor for Han or something, in sort of a scoundrel
He's the
way.
Yondu. He's the Yondu to his Star-Lord.
That's probably the right way to put it. I do feel that they're not using any kind of like pop music or anything, but I do wonder how much they're gonna be influenced by Guardians of the Galaxy, because that's a movie that sort of has elements of. There's definitely elements of the original trilogy in those movies, in the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Chris Pratt's the best Han Solo since Harrison Ford. Even though he's not Han Solo. But that character is so Han Solo-esque.
Again, Han Solo is one of the actors that I think would be the hardest to imagine somebody else portraying one of his characters.
Harrison Ford, he's hard to capture a likeness in a toy, in a comic book, and in film.
People always have had a hard time in sculpting it, whether it's action figures or statues. Yeah, you're right. People have always had a hard time capturing his likeness. I mean, I don't know. There is just something about the guy that is very iconic, and it's tough to capture that. Now, let's jump back for a second. You were talking about the scene where Emilia Clarke and Alden Ehrenreich are riding in what looks like some kind of a speeder.
Yeah.
So somebody was mentioning this the other day. I don't know who it was. It was somewhere I saw on a forum, but it made me think, clearly Han Solo's fashion, he's got the sideburns. It's a little bit influenced by the 1970s when the original Star Wars came out, right? All Imperial officers have sideburns. So if we're taking Han Solo's, character back a couple years, because Han is older than, Luke and Leia. I mean, he's a good bit older than Luke and Leia, just like in real life. Harrison Ford was a good bit older than, Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher. So Han Solo, his younger days are going to be taking place, about 20 years prior to the original trilogy, maybe 10, 20 years prior. So if you think the original Star Wars is sort of like the 70s style, there are elements of this movie that are like late 50s, early 60s style. And so you kind of have like drag racing elements and things
like American
that
Graffiti.
harken back to another Lucas movie, American Graffiti, which Harrison Ford was in, who played a character named Bob Falfa, which sounds very similar to Boba Fett.
And Jimmy Bobo.
And Jimmy Bobo. We're gonna leave Jimmy Bobo. And Jimmy Bobo, who was played by Sylvester Stallone, who was in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Yeah, which is 2 because of Two-Face.
Oh, Two-Face.
And it came out on May 2nd. No. So, you can tell it's getting late.
It is getting late. I've been up since 5:20, so.
Yeah, me too. And I'm getting up at 5:30 coming up. So, real quick, before we wrap this podcast up and close out, bounty hunters, do you think they'll be used? Is there any specific way you would like them to be used? I mean,
yes.
There's rumors that we're also going to get Vader, and we're probably going to get Boba Fett in this. Which I know Vader's not a bounty hunter, of course, but I'm just saying.
So there have been leaked images that have come from one of the other toy fairs, not the New York Toy Fair, obviously, that shows a very Jabba the Hutt's palace styled scene. So we could see an early run-in with Han and Jabba the Hutt.
Oh, that would be freaking awesome.
That sets up a little bit of Boba Fett. I really hope they leave Vader out of this movie. Now, again, if Vader comes in and has an awesome scene, but...
what if Vader interacts with Jabba the Hutt?
Okay, that could work.
That would be awesome.
Because that was one of the best parts of the Marvel series.
Yes.
Was when Vader interacted with Jabba the Hutt. That was pretty cool. I'll tell you who I want in this movie, Brad.
Okay.
I want Dengar.
Yeah, because isn't he involved in the Kessel Run in the Legends books?
In some way, in various ways, Han has had a run-in with Dengar in the past, and this is why Dengar has a head injury, something that Han has done to him. And so I would love to see them take that element and, bring it into play.
Yeah, and I would like... So that's cool because... then we get, we harken back to one, well, it's not harkening back because this is original. I mean, this would chronologically be first, but we go back to one of those original bounty hunters from Empire. But hopefully we also introduce some new bounty hunters too into this mythology.
Yeah.
That have decent through lines and who are memorable. And yeah, man, the Vader Jabba the Hutt scene, like I get what you're saying about Vader before we talked about that, because you don't want to, again, oversaturate that character. He's special.
I don't know how much sense he makes in this movie, or if he should be a big part of this movie. But,
yeah.
Let's take somebody like, Jabba the Hutt, that's going to work. Dengar, he supposedly, again, Legends canon, he has a head injury from I think it's like a swoop bike race with Han Solo. They're both Corellians. This could work. Maybe
we'll see Zero the Hutt.
We could.
I hope not, but we could.
You like Zero the Hutt?
See, he's all right. So he was in Clone Wars. So one thing that I had to say real quick before we wrap this up.
No, wait, he's dead. Zero the Hutt was dead.
Oh, at
He
this
got
point,
killed, yeah.
Okay, all right. One of the things I want to say is, okay, I'm saying it needs to be different, right? Star Wars. I'm saying it needs to move in a different direction, not involve these characters that make this giant universe or giant galaxy feel small. But here I am geeking out over a potential interaction that would last 3 minutes between Vader and Jabba the Hutt. So, I mean, that's why That's why they're making this crap, because they know people like me are gonna go see it and geek out and podcast and just enjoy it. But I mean, that's what all this stuff's about. But Jerry, that's gonna wrap up the 83rd edition of the Confirmed Epic Podcast. We're looking forward to Solo. Comes out Memorial Day weekend 2018. I know I'm going to plan to have a sitter, and I'm definitely seeing that one in theaters, no doubt, no matter what the hype or the RT score says.
That is going to be an insanely packed couple of weeks for movies.
Yeah, with Deadpool in there.
Infinity War.
And I'm honestly probably going to skip Deadpool.
What?
I'm just not a huge Deadpool fan. I don't
You didn't
know.
like the first one?
It was fine. I just don't like that character that much.
Okay, well that makes sense.
It's not the movie. The movie is good. It's an accurate portrayal of the character. I'm just never a big fan. Plus, with the newborn there, you know, I mean, I've got lined up, like, we're having sitters.
Yeah.
Like Abby's parents and then my parents. One of those for Solo.
See, a newborn was when I had everybody wanting to watch the baby.
Yeah,
we want to watch
exactly.
the baby. Okay, yeah, we could have got out all the time when she was a baby.
Yeah, so Solo and Infinity War, those are locked in carbonite. Those dates are. All right, Jerry Reed, where can people find more of you this week on the internet?
Check me out at actionfigurebarbecue.com. That's BARBECUE, actionfigurebarbecue.com. Serving up reviews hot and fresh daily. This week, I've got lots of random stuff. I got lots of random minifigures. I opened a Kinder Egg. And I've got a special Marvel Legends review coming out at the end of the week, so on Friday. And
also, the Road to Solo will be hitting.
The Road to Solo. Now, right now, there's nothing out there, but I did pick up one of the little mini Star Wars Microforce figures and reviewed the Han Solo in his Hoth parka. You know,
you could go back to Power of the Force Han Solo figures.
I could
gets
grab
really
some.
bad.
I mean, I've got plenty of Han Solo figures to review. But there's not a lot new out right now.
Absolutely. So as far as me, you can find me at Twitter at The Real Brad Bell, DREEL Brad Bell. Find me at Geeks Worldwide, DGWW.com. Thanks for them again for picking us back up. We appreciate them. We appreciate all their listeners, all their support. Editor-in-Chief Casey Wash works his butt off over there. Thank you, Casey. As Epic Review, Epic Review, home of the podcast. Always check that out. Jerry, Gotham by Gaslight hit DVD this week.
Yep.
The DC Direct.
Yeah, mine
DVD.
showed up today.
Yeah, so I'm going to probably watch that on demand or something. And hopefully for episode 84, that's what we'll be reviewing. Gas leak shouldn't, keep us from doing that, hopefully. So looking forward to that next week on the pod. So look for that next week. So, once again, from the Hollywood foothills of North Carolina, we are out.
That's all I have to say about that.
This has been a production of the GWW Radio Network. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Also, check out Geeks Worldwide at thegww.com for all the latest news, reviews, and opinions on video games, comics, movies, TV, cosplay, and more. Geeks, assemble!
Testing, live, 1, 2, 3, test broadcast for February 6, 2018. Just want to see how loud this is. Today has been a great day. my wife Abby passed her gestational diabetes test. So I'm very happy for her. Trying to get used to a new sit-up here. Yes, test. Hope everybody's doing well. Really well. Live. I think we're good on the volume. Hopefully I'm not too loud. Yep. All right. Let's see how this thing turns.